You see, the distinctive thing about the court in its history is that it's a circle of men with fierce ideological differences. Fierce. With every man willing to die for his point of view, but as a group harmonious, which is unusual to find.
Would you say today it's harmonious?
Yes, it's harmonious.
When he was appointed by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, William O. Douglas was among the youngest ever to serve on the Supreme Court. Raised in poverty near Yakima, Washington by a single mother, he came east upon admission to Columbia Law School, arriving on the streets of New York with no money. To pay tuition, he cobbled together part-time jobs and academically soon made his reputation as an exceptional legal mind. His mastery at the practice of business law earned him an appointment to head the Securities and Exchange Commission to shake up corrupt practices on Wall Street. He was offered the job of heading Yale's law school, but President Roosevelt steered him instead to the High Court. His first week on the job brought a case before him concerning his and fellow justices' salaries. Should they be subject to tax on their own income? Previous courts had construed the Constitution to exempt them.
And the youngest, after the discussion, the youngest justice in service votes first. And he was turned to me and he said, "Douglas, how do you vote?" And I said, "I vote to reverse." And that's the way the court went. And as I made the little entry in the docket sheet, I said to myself, "Young man, you've just voted yourself first-class citizenship." And I decided that if you're going to pay taxes like everybody else, that you should be a citizen like everybody else.
Plunged into World War II, Douglas was swayed in some early decisions by senior views of the court. One far-reaching decision, affirming the government's right to detain Japanese Americans in internment camps, he soon after publicly regretted. And that regret bolstered the vigor he brought to defending civil liberties for the rest of his life. Spanning America's critical decades, from the Cold War and anti-communist fervor, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Vietnam War protests, Douglas's opinions reflected his strong view of due process guaranteed by the Bill of Rights. The right to equal protection under the law, the right to not self-incriminate, the rights to privacy. For his outspokenness to make the court more an organ of the people, detractors branded him an activist judge, not least for his lack of reverence toward precedents in the law.
Well, I've always thought that on a constitutional decision, that stare decisis, that is, the established law, was really no sure guideline, because what did the judges who sat there in 1875 know about, say, electronic surveillance? They didn't know anything about it.
Or television.
Why take their wisdom? That's why I once said, to the consternation of a group of lawyers, that I'd rather create a precedent than find one. Because the creation of a precedent in terms of the modern setting means the adjustment of the Constitution to the needs of the time.
Many of his opinions, particularly in dissent, made as much news as those that prevailed. In Sierra Club versus Morton, in which the environmental group lost its case against development, he wrote that if the Sierra Club had no standing, then perhaps standing ought to be redefined. He wrote, "The critical question of standing would be simplified and also put neatly in focus if we fashioned a federal rule that allowed environmental issues to be litigated in the name of the inanimate object about to be despoiled, defaced, or invaded by roads and bulldozers, and where injury is the subject of public outrage." While the Sierra Club lost the battle, Douglas's dissent empowered the legal victories that won the war to give standing to American wilderness worthy of protection.
Well, you need the week to think about these problems, but you can be hiking while you don't need to stop thinking.
Can you do that? Can you keep the facts of a specific complicated case in your head as you're walking through the woods here, for example?
Oh, sure. That's the best way to solve a problem if you're confused. But I tell when I talk to lawyers, that you're never confused if you read the Constitution the right way.